Chapter 1, Mecha Our Life. Congratulations Miss Max, you have a healthy baby boy. The doctor smiles down at his exhausted patient. It had been a hard labor, and for a while they had feared the baby would be lost. Can't you fix that? I wanted a girl. I was certain she would be a healthy baby girl. As you probably already know Miss Max, ethics law prohibits genetic resequencing between birth and adulthood when the patient can legally consent on their own. If you want a baby girl, you can try again and pay for the assurance treatments. No, that won't do at all. Those treatments are more than I make in a year. Carla Max thought to herself while giving the doctor a polite nod. I'll just have to work with what I have. Now if you'll just sign your name and the child's, you're ready for discharge. A bubbly young nurse brought the new mother from her reverie. Sign here, and now, what do I name this child, that simply couldn't be born a girl? Samantha, I will still name her Samantha and she will grow into what she is supposed to be. Yes, that is the best course, Carla Max decided. The son that Carla Max had just given birth to woke up for the first time, confused and trying to grasp at the last fading memories of his past life, just as his mother was hurrying out of the free clinic where he was born. The clinic didn't let patients stay to recover, they just gave them a generic healing injection and discharged them as soon as they could walk again, in order to free up bed space. This newborn boy was Maximilian, hero of the 10 Worlds Crusade, defender of humanity and bonded pilot of the god machine Gloriana. Or at least he was. The memories of his past life were fading fast, until there was nothing left, leaving him alone and confused in this newborn body. The clinic was a grey market office, operated by unlicensed physicians in a run-down part of town. They didn't even do the birth screenings for nanotechnology compatibility, or the screenings for physical and developmental aptitude that are so common at every reputable facility. Instead they had left them all to be done at the legally mandated 6-month government checkup. Every child on Kepler Terminus was closely monitored by the government as a potential military recruit. An intergalactic war had been raging for decades and they needed every soldier and mecha pilot they could get just to survive. Max's head was aching from trying to understand the world around him with nothing as a reference, not even a common language, but he soon found he was able to reach out to a nearby mind belonging to a newborn in a car sitting at a traffic light on the street in front of him. Personal ability active. Max didn't even notice the dialogue at the edge of his vision, or the voice in his mind, he was too preoccupied with what he found. This infant's mind contained incredible memories. Memories of war, of robotic suits fighting on far-off planets, knowledge of languages and of martial arts. Who was this child whose mind he had invaded? There was no sense of self, like they were forgetting who they were, but somehow they were managing to retain some memories of their past life. The exact opposite of Max, who remembered his own name, along with his personal sense of righteousness. Was it possible he wasn't the only one reincarnated? Max knew for certain that he was, but that was all he could clearly recall of his former life. But Max was determined he would not forget these memories that called out to an instinct deep within him. He would carry on that love of robots from this child's fading past life. It was a love that he felt deep in his bones, one that shaped every moment of his mostly forgotten past life. Max, as he preferred to call himself, ignoring the horrid name his mother gave him, soon realized he had a very useful gift. With effort, he could borrow the memories of those around him. With repeated use he could take on a mimicry of their personality and use skills they knew, to some extent. Currently his small body limited much of his ability to duplicate actions. An industrial accident a millennia prior had released nanobots into the atmosphere of Kepler Terminus, where they multiplied and created an artificial intelligence net that infected every citizen of the planet, affecting each person in a different way beginning at birth. Some were born with extra strength, or long lives, some with abilities that bordered on the supernatural. Max had gained one of those types of benefits. The microscopic machines in his body were capable of deciphering the brain patterns of those around him, granting a glimpse into their thoughts and recent memories. Such an ability was highly prized in this world, not for science or justice, but for war and espionage. Max was unaware of that fact, so when the police came with a doctor to give him his overdue 6-month checkup, he didn't try to hide anything and they discovered he had an alpha-level innate talent, which caused them to automatically enroll him in the military academy, as they did for every other talented youth in this Kepler kingdom. The Kepler kingdom, which spanned over 200 populated worlds, was a relatively young kingdom embroiled in constant war and needed all of their best and brightest from every planet. His mother was overjoyed, as parents of future academy students got an extra government stipend to help raise the talented children of the empire. A monthly credit transfer she was free to spend on drugs. Max really didn't care, he just wanted to get away from this crazy woman and her drunkard of a boyfriend, who may or may not be his father. That was the thought that dominated his childhood. That and giant robots. To reach that goal, he put everything he had into developing his abilities, learning to walk and talk before age 1. Much of this was due to the partially active system created by the nanotechnology enhancing and helping develop his mind and body. He had started his second day in this world with a lifetime of someone else's memories, so he had no need to learn the basics, only to tone his body to accomplish them. A feat that is easier said than done for a toddler. In the early years of his life, Max only ever saw the one system notification, the very first, when it partially activated to help him understand the world around him. The system wouldn't fully come online until after a child had started at the military academy, where the AI network would recognize the need. For now it remained only the most basic of a shell, waiting for his body to mature. At home, his mother still insisted he was her daughter, not a boy at all, at least when she was coherent enough to address him and acknowledge his existence. She bought him only dresses, and insisted his blonde hair be worn long and in a constantly refreshed perm. In her mind, that was the only style that properly complemented his baby blue eyes. Were he a normal toddler he would most likely have perished of neglect before age 3, but Max quickly learned to control his body well enough to manipulate small objects, like the fridge door and food containers, making himself reliant only on there being something edible in the house. Fortunately, his drunkard of a father believed that only the finest of snacks were suitable for watching sports games. So chicken wings, pre-packaged burgers, pretzels, and orange juice for mixing in his mother's drinks were always in plentiful supply. If that failed, the boy would simply use his father's data tablet to order prepaid delivery, a happy surprise for everyone when it arrived. The planet known as Kepler Terminus was a highly advanced one, with automation and technology involved in every aspect of their lives. Had his parents been responsible, the talented child stipend, as the government called it, would have been enough to buy him an android nanny, pay off a house in a good neighborhood and buy the most advanced of educational virtual reality simulations. Instead, Max learned from the minds of those around him and played pirated versions of the publicly available mecha trainers with a disabled veteran turned hacker who lived a few doors down. The man found the overly mature boy amusing, and after the toddler gave him a timely warning about the approaching minds of the cybersecurity SWAT team, they became the best of friends. He fed the boy's obsession with mecha, and the boy kept him updated on police activities through regular trips to the convenience store past the local police station. If anyone thought it strange the older man in his wheelchair was always with a child that didn't appear to be his own, nobody in their housing project was willing to say anything about it. A few times Max's parents freaked out on his friend, thinking the man would demand money for babysitting or harm their government-funding meal ticket, but by the time the boy was 3 they stopped caring as long as Max could be found for his mandatory checkups every 6 months. Max passed his entire early childhood in that manner, learning the intricacies of mecha handling, as well as the best ways to repair pirated technology and avoid police detection. He also learned of the system, the artificial intelligence created within everyone in their world that was decently compatible with the technology. Alpha rank compatibility like his could activate a higher quality upgrade than the beta and gamma ranked children, as well as having the chance of activating an innate talent. For delta ranked children, the data he found on the information net said it would barely matter to their lives, helping them heal a little faster, or maybe helping them learn trade skills, but with minimal ability to upgrade. F-ranked compatibility, like his parents, would never see the system at all, the technology rejected them as a host. F-rank citizens made up over half the planet, with the nanobots in their system serving only to assist doctors with testing them for injuries and illness. Alpha rank compatibility occurred in less than 1% of the population, making them the military elites, as that was their only available career path. One late spring afternoon as Max and Dave were returning to reality after playing mecha combat games on hacked VR consoles, Dave's mood took a somber turn, causing Max to fear his only true friend was more seriously ill than he let on. A poisonous attack had ruined his organs in battle, but so far the nanobots had been keeping his body stable in its crippled state. You'll be 12 years old soon, and off to the academy the first day of summer, so we need to get you ready. I got you a new uniform and some supplies. Dave finally told him, handing him a package. The bus comes the day after my birthday, so this will be goodbye for a while at least. I'll return from school when I can. Max smiles at his friend who is searching for the cigarette pack sitting under his long numb leg. But first you must survive another princess-themed birthday party. I swear that woman gets more delusional every year. Drugs are rotting her brain. Dave laughs, lighting a smoke from the pack he finally found and placing the pack back under his leg. Wanna spot me a bag of flacked? If she gets high enough she'll forget it's my birthday. Max teases his friend, knowing he won't enable his mother's addiction. Tempting, but no. Now go, and be well until I see you again. Dave says, trying to hide his overflowing emotions as tears run down his leathery cheeks and into his graying beard. Chapter 2, to the academy. Samantha darling, you've got everything packed, right? The academy bus will be here soon to get you. His mother called from the living room. About time too, he couldn't wait to get out of this house and never come back. 12 long years he's waited, studying what he can with virtually zero resources and even less parental support. Yet still, his mother declared last night during his birthday dinner that she wants him to drop out of the academy at age 18 when the government funding for parents ends to become a beauty queen and support the family, refusing to this day to admit that she has a son. While Max waited for the academy transport and watched a spider slowly pull a piece of chipped paint from the wall, his mind wandered to his first memories of mighty ion cannons and mecha that didn't match anything in the Kepler Kingdom's army. Those memories still stuck with him, driving him every day to learn a little more about mecha piloting. Mostly he learned from Dave the hacker who lived a few doors down, but he did do some official research to look good for the government monitors. After making sure he's connected to his home wireless and using a default spec generic device of course. His parents rarely noticed if he was missing, so the two have spent a great deal of time together, weeks on end in fact, and Max had used the old veteran's VR set to practice on the black market mecha simulators every chance he could, preparing for this day when the academy would come to collect him. There was only so much he could improve himself without having the system active, but many of the lowest ranked pilots had Delta rank system compatibility, which was basically the same thing. For them only pure talent separated the top from the bottom. The very best could even surpass higher ranked slackers who relied on the system for all their improvements. Dave for his part made sure Max was learning everything necessary to become the sort of military officer that enlisted men like him looked up to. If you ignored the propensity for illegal online activities that is. Are you all ready, sweetie? Carla Max asks her oldest son, holding her twin daughters on her hips. For dinner or for her school? Yes to both, mother. I've been studying hard to be the very best student at the academy. That's good news, darling. When I was your age, I was still learning to read. You study robotics for fun and have a daily workout routine. Those kids have nothing on you. Despite his intense dislike for the woman, Max was too kind to mention that high-level system compatibility enhances cognitive abilities, so an F-ranked child really doesn't stand a chance against one with high-ranked compatibility at the same age. Even without his unique advantages. Plus, he's 12 already, even the most dim-witted of F-ranked children should have long since learned to read by now. But that's better kept to himself. But she was right, he had indeed been studying robotics, far more than his parents knew. From the moment he met Dave, he devoted himself to mecha repair, design, development, and piloting techniques. At least as much as he could pirate from the civilian net or hack from the online government servers. It became clear to him by age 2 that those government servers were meant to be hacked. There was nothing confidential on them, but an inquiring mind with a thirst for knowledge could find a great deal there. Like the essentials of manual robot control, academy dexterity training and how to build an antique ion cannon. They were powerful weapons, with the advantage of being driven off the machine's power core and not running out of ammunition, but with the downside of a slow rate of fire, since the ionized plasma took a bit of time to charge. Many line mecha pilots used them. They are the Kepler Kingdom's entry-level mecha and their newer or lower-ranked pilots are often lacking the skills to accurately deploy a faster-firing weapon. The propaganda on the net portrayed every mecha pilot as heroes of the Kepler Kingdom, but Max had a sneaking suspicion that many were there to be nothing more than fodder for the war machine. Dave depeased war, calling it a waste of lives and resources, but made it clear to Max that the right leader could be the difference between life and death. So he insisted Max should be that leader, both for himself and those under him. In the larger but faster Corvette-class mecha the ion cannons were rare, but in the true heart of the Imperial mecha squadrons, the Crusader and Phalanx-class giant robots, they were a time-honored favorite. Outdone in many situations by more specialized weapons, like the Gatling cannon Max preferred in combat simulations, they could still eliminate enemy mecha and buildings with great efficiency in the right hands. Coming into the kitchen dressed in a black uniform shirt he got from the old veteran 2 days ago and a clean pair of white pants, Max almost managed to look like the academy cadet he was about to become. All he needed was academy emblems to complete the look. Just one last meal with his family and he was free. I'm ready for dinner, where's mother gone? Max asked, ducking his head through the kitchen doorway and finding everyone but her was already present. No matter how much he despises his parents, it's not worth the beating to disrespect them to their faces, even on his last day here. He's still in a rather small preteen body after all. She said something about losing her little girl and hid in the bedroom to look at photo albums and cry again. Can you pretty please bring her to dinner? Peter, his father asks. No problem. Max sighs and walks over towards the bedroom door, which hangs slightly crooked and has a large hole in the middle from a previous argument between his parents. Mama, the food is getting cold, did you want to miss your last dinner before I head to the academy? He called through the closed bedroom door, making his father facepalm at his lack of tact and sensitivity. Peter knew Carla had mental issues, and that her treatment of the boy was beyond strange, but he simply couldn't be bothered to wreck a good thing by making a fuss about it. The boy's stipend from the government paid for everything he had and he wasn't about to give it up by alerting child services. Peter decided that since Max was leaving, he should start encouraging Carla to make more female friends and talk about things other than her dreams for her daughters, in the hopes that maybe it would help balance his little wife's personality. At least that's what he wished for, not knowing it was a lost cause from the start. She was set on a delusional life of glamour, even if it was by proxy through her children. Carla came running through the living room, wiping her red and puffy eyes, swollen belly cradled in her other hand. Slow down, you don't want to trip and risk the babies. Max teased. His mother was pregnant again, another set of twins. Boys this time, and the other twins weren't even 2 yet. Hopefully now that she had her girls these boys might fare better than him. I'm sorry honey, I don't know what got into me. Carla cried, hugging the son she had never actually cared enough about to even realize he despised her. Don't worry mother, it's only a few months until spring break and I'll be back again, Max says, rubbing her back, with no intention of ever actually returning. But you don't get to come home for the winter pageants, they get you all to themselves and I will be here surrounded by boys. Carla pouts, heading to the table as Peter brings out the birthday dinner. Shepherd's pie with Caesar salad, and pumpkin pie for dessert, all Max's favorites. With 3 little boys to take care of, your days will fly by faster than you know it, Mom. Max teases. Hey you little rascal, I heard that. Peter laughs, glad they're actually getting along for a moment. Due to a number of reluctant parents not showing up on time, the military academy sends a bus for students the night before their first classes, in time to get them to the school residences before sundown, so they can get settled before lights out. Dinner finishes just in time for the bus to arrive, and Peter heads back into the kitchen to do dishes, well out of range of his wife's impending mental breakdown. Greetings Colonel, I wasn't expecting someone so illustrious to come pick up students for school, he heard Max say. That must be Colonel James Black, head of the Academy's Mecha Repair program, and according to the news, the highest-ranking officer on campus. And greetings to the man of the hour, the Colonel says, seeing Max come out in his new almost uniform outfit. The only difference in uniforms between genders is the color of the shirts. Gray for girls, black for boys. The uniform itself is white in the summer, black in the winter. Yes Colonel, this is our beloved oldest child. Peter confirms, coming out of the kitchen when his wife doesn't respond, carefully choosing his words to not set Carla off. I just love mecha, Colonel. Max says, standing up as tall as his 12-year-old body can manage. I've been practicing on the publicly available simulators and I'm certain I have what it takes. Well-spoken child you've raised. Colonel Black nods politely to the parents, ignoring the ramshackle state of the apartment. Now if you'll excuse us, we've got to get to the academy. Ignoring his nerves, Max rushes out the door to the bus, not wanting the academy staff to see any more of the disaster he was living in. Or even worse, talk with the woman who calls herself his mother. If they think he will end up like that, they just might wash him out of the advanced program. You are Samantha Max? The driver asks dubiously and Max shows him his official identification. So you are. Lots of students to pick up today, and you're first. Let's get a move on. Chapter 3, What are the odds? As the bus passed out of the slums where Max grew up and into better neighborhoods, it began picking up more students. Very few families were like Max's and squandered absolutely everything they received. The bus slowly filled with his new classmates, and Max took the time to look into each one's mind, evaluating them. What he found were mostly the undeveloped minds of small children. Surely there must be at least a few more like himself, who were more developed, but so far Max hasn't seen much indication of it, except in one student, who has at least played the restricted mecha simulators before. The bus was almost full of children when a girl called Nico got on, chuckling at the students with their clothes in disarray, their eyes red from a sorrowful parting with their parents. Her reaction intrigues Sam, that's not how any of the others have reacted. Her friend Nathan gives her a fist bump, showing her the seat he saved beside him, and the girl settles in before making fun of her friend for having cried when he got on the bus. I hope we're in the same class, Nathan says, looking over the bus full of kids. It will be so boring if we're not. Who else can even try to keep up? Nathan has an alpha-ranked system compatibility with beta-ranked physical potential, though he didn't activate an innate talent. Still, that puts him well ahead of his peers in development, and makes him the only other pre-academy aged student that Sam's memory scans have found to be capable of playing the VR piloting programs that Max loves. Most of these kids can barely do multiplication, much less master the multi-input processes and calculations needed to get the mecha to do more than basic, crude movements. Before the academy, most games are played on consoles, and a dozen buttons on a controller is a far cry from what is needed to control a mecha. The mind that just entered the bus feels very familiar to Sam for some reason, so he reaches out his ability to borrow some additional memories and learn more about this outgoing and confident girl. To his surprise, it's the girl with memories of her past life. The very first mind he ever touched after he was reincarnated into this world. He would have recognized those memories of mecha from anywhere. She had, and might still have, memories of an entire life of mecha piloting, and her recent memories suggest that has been training just as hard as him to get ready for the academy. It seems this girl is also in the piloting program, and Sam makes a devout wish that they can become friends. Her memories gave him not only reference and basic skills to work with as an infant, but a purpose in life to survive the neglect and abuse of a childhood spent with his wastrel parents. If he gets reincarnated again, he's definitely asking for some memories. When we get there, even identification numbers to the left, odd to the right. Odd numbers, your dorm supervisor will be Major Amanda Payne. Respect her as your ranking officer and all will be well. Colonel Black instructs. Both Sam and Nico take note, as they both have odd-numbered identifications. Many of the students have very little idea what he means, beyond being polite and listening to her, and even that is iffy for some of the worst behaved. Their parents had been raising them wild and free, hoping the military would reject them and send them home. It's a grossly misguided notion. The children have a decade of intensive educating ahead of them, and misbehaving will keep them in the school the entire time without a chance to visit home. So, they simply mill about the asphalt courtyard with its yellow painted grid pattern, waiting for someone to tell them what to do and meeting their new classmates. Major Payne is a tall woman with long dark brown hair tied in a military regulation bun, as opposed to Nico's military-approved pixie cut of her black curls and Sam's shoulder-length blonde perm. Right to the bitter end, his mother insisted on this dreadful haircut. The first chance he gets, the perm is gone. The Major turns, looking at them all assessingly, judging who will be trouble and who to fast track. Nico knows this, it was in the government server she had gained access to, listed as standard procedure for incoming students. Sam knows this too, because Nico knows this and it was in her recent memories when he checked on the bus. Max spaces out, sorting through the instructor's mind and quickly loses track of time and what's happening around him. It's a bad habit of his, but at Dave's house he could usually hide the fact that he was zoned out behind a VR headset. Knowing what's expected, Nico stands in one of the painted squares at ease, bag beside her, with her feet shoulder-width apart, her hands folded in front, in the customary ready stance of the academy. Nobody else did. In fact, they're still horsing around and giggling. Sam snaps out of his reverie and gets into position next to the only other cadet that knows what to do, feeling sheepish about his lapse in attention. He's at the academy now, he needs to make good impressions if he's going to get himself chosen as a potential officer cadet. From the corner of her eye, Nico sees one little blonde-haired girl, standing on the mark on the floor to her left. Or is that a boy with a terrible haircut and delicate face? Black shirt, so a boy then. The Major smiles a little and makes a mark on her clipboard. It's about 10 minutes before the rest of the students understand that something is expected of them, and that there's a reason why the supervisor isn't speaking or showing them to their rooms before they slowly start lining up on the marked floor. Very good, cadets. All under 15 minutes. You will do one lap around the dormitory at a run for every minute it took you to fall in on your arrival. Lesson 1. When you arrive, fall in. 4 more officers appear and lead the cadets out. Cadet Nico, Cadet Max, you're with me. Fall in time was under a minute. Major Payne calls. The two are assigned as roommates, and being the star pupils in the supervisor's eyes, they get first pick of the dorms. All facilities are co-ed at the school, to build unity amongst the future soldiers. Following that ideal, nothing that divides them except talent and unit is permitted. Could you show us a good choice, Major? Nico asks. Not too near the bathrooms, but not too far, preferably with a window. Excellent choice, Cadet Nico. Tareth Nico, that's an interesting name, a family name perhaps. Major Payne asks in her all-business tone. No ma'am, it's Nico Tareth, the girl corrects, and the Major shows her the official birth record from her tablet. Tareth Nico. Her parents entered her name backwards on the form when she was born. That's the sort of thing he wouldn't put past his own mother, Max thinks. From today you are Cadet Nico. You may apply for a change of name once your basic instruction is complete. Major Payne consoles her with a gentle smile. Look at it this way, Cadet, you're the only one that gets to keep her own given name. First names are rarely used here. This little tidbit, intended for his new roommate, is the single greatest thing that Max has ever heard. Nobody will be calling him Samantha, the name he despises largely because the mother he likes even less chose it for him. Plus, when he finishes school, he can officially change it on his own. The room the Major shows them to is a corner unit, the only one for students in their year, the other 3 corners being taken by the supervisors. Both outer walls have windows, and it's a slightly larger room than the other ones they've passed. Every door currently stands open until it has 2 occupants so that the supervisors can easily confirm which cadets are where and who is not getting with the program. Thank you for your consideration, Supervisor Payne, Nico and Max say at the same time, and the instructor gives them the fist-to-chest Imperial Soldiers salute in return. Chapter 4, The First Test. The mood in the dorm is low the next morning. Nobody else had less than 10 laps of the gigantic dorm building that holds 7 years' worth of Class 1 cadets. After age 18, the cadets will move to the Imperial Military College. Nico was chosen for a scholarship to the military college at birth due to her talent level, which Sam found out last night as they got acquainted before bed. The Imperial College is essential training to become a command officer, so it is a place Max has worked his hardest in hopes of attending. If he can't score high enough, he will end up at one of the lesser colleges, becoming a low-ranked line mecha pilot, and likely end his days doing drudge work under someone else's orders. That's the last thing that Max wants, and Nico has agreed to help him with his goal in every way she can. But first, they must suffer through years of basic education Nico already did on her own, from what Max has seen in her memories. Max, on the other hand, learned a great number of the things that are considered essential knowledge only today. He's not sure how his handwriting will be, having never actually owned pen or paper, but after multiple uses of his skill on his roommate, a very necessary invasion of privacy he feels truly bad about, he has all of the essential skills and many of the important bits of knowledge Dave missed teaching him committed to his memory long term. Dave was an enlisted infantry soldier, with a D- system compatibility score. He was never taught anything about mecha piloting, and all he knew of the officers' training was that they liked to order his units to their death by the tens of thousands while they stayed back in the command center. All recruits assemble in the front courtyard at 0900 comes an announcement through the speakers mounted all over their floor. Max and Nico both snap their attention to the clock, seeing that they have 10 minutes to get downstairs. They're not allowed to use the service elevator and the first years are on the top floor of the building. Every year they'll get one level closer to the ground with shorter runs when these announcements come in. The majority of the others are still sleeping, so the pair calls out to the cafeteria that's in 10 minutes and we need to get downstairs. Time to go everyone. Wise enough to not want Anther punishment for being late already, everyone heads for the stairs, many still carrying their morning meal. As they run they call out into the dorm rooms in an attempt to get the rest up. Dorm room doors don't lock, but every cadet gets a biometric locked cabinet in their room. Max and Nico both know to keep everything secured in their lockers and the bed made, but a lot of the rooms they pass look like a hurricane just passed through. They were only allowed to bring one small bag of personal effects and Max brought nothing at all except a few keepsakes from Dave and a single change of clothes. Nico brought a bit more, but only enough to fill a third of the regulation rucksack that they will be issued soon. As they reach the stairs, Nico taps the data screen built into the wall and winks at Max. The lights start flashing red and an alarm sounds, pulling even the deepest sleepers from bed. She doesn't slow her pace though, hopping up to ride the banisters down to ground level with Max right behind her. Major Payne is smiling at them and looking at a stopwatch when they arrive and fall in on the painted squares in the courtyard. This time a few of the smarter students are not far behind them, panting from the effort of running down the stairs. Fewer than 20 of their classmates are assembled when the instructor clicks her stopwatch and the other teachers lock the doors and wait inside for the late cadets. Not bad cadets. The alarm was a nice touch. You will now be issued your uniforms, toiletries, and have the chance to access the commissary for anything you forgot. 100 standard credits have been issued to your accounts. A sergeant comes by to hand each cadet a plastic bag with their ID number on it, containing their basic necessities. Fall out and assemble here in 3 hours, in uniform and ready for afternoon training. Major Payne smiles at the students, many of whom start thinking she might secretly be a kind person and not a harsh taskmaster. The relaxed first day schedule is a trap though, as are the credits. It's the entirety of their first semester's allowance, and if they spend it all now on comforts they'll have very little for the next 4 months. The academy year is split into 3 semesters of focused education with a break in between each. The end of summer break they won't be allowed to leave this year, but the early spring and beginning of summer ones they will be if they're well behaved. Let's go get socks. They only give you 2 pairs. Max tells Nico once they're dismissed and starts jogging for the commissary to get there early. That was among the most important bits of advice in Dave's mind when he was briefing Max on his first days at the academy. Clean socks are the key to comfort, he insisted. 1 standard credit each gets them a prep pack, as the academy calls them. A high-tech thermal base layer that holds optimal body temperature, with 6 pairs of socks and a boot polishing kit. They each take 2. Let's go, my friend says they give you the boots unpolished, Max tells Nico who shakes her head at their pettiness. Everything the first day is a test for the cadets. Even the uniform kit. The underwear in it is cheap and scratchy, but the prep pack base layer is silky smooth and extremely comfortable. The boots aren't polished, but they have to be to pass muster. Finally, their cadet badges attach to the locking buttons, but no instructions are given as to their proper placement. The military wants to know how fast they can adapt and how strong their decision-making skills are, but it doesn't make life easy on cadets like Max and Nico who don't see it as a mental challenge, but a series of minor inconveniences. Chapter 5, Learning the Real Rules. The 2 young cadets head back to their rooms to change and get their uniforms ready. Max made a mental note of the location of the patches on the older cadets' uniforms earlier, so he wouldn't get it wrong, but Nico has managed to pull the description up on the screen by the door of their room. Is that supposed to be available? Max asks, indicating the screen. Of course. It's not locked, they just don't think we know how to work the system or they would make the test tougher. Now, grab some hot water from the bathroom to soften the boot polish. The kin is cold, so I am pretty sure they keep them in frozen storage. Max decides they must have done too well yesterday, the academy is pulling out all the tricks today to catch them off guard. Or maybe like Nico said, they're being treated as idiots and the major is planning to teach them everything step by step. As if thinking of her summoned her, the major walks by their door at just that moment and Max flags her down to obtain a few more important details for their first day. Major. What uniform will we require this afternoon, the coveralls or the dress uniform? Major Payne smiles at her new charge, impressed by his understanding, and then notices that the other young prodigy has started placing the polishing kits out and arranging uniform badges. "Cadet, do you both know what you need to do?" she asks curiously. "Yes ma'am. The data screen showed us everything that we needed to know," Max responds, standing at the cadet version of attention. "Since you got the prep pack, I recommend the coveralls. This afternoon is a physical assessment." The major informs him and walks away to help the other cadets, who are not doing nearly as well. The combination of the healing abilities provided by the nanotechnology and the Kepler Empire's advanced technology leads to very long lives for those who can afford it, or those who remain in military service, and Major Payne has been training cadets for over 50 years. She might have seen more outstanding cadets in the past, but she believes these two have a special promise to them. That assessment goes into her notes, along with a recommendation to fast-track them through early education, as most of it will be unnecessary. The cadets don't know it yet, but their first physical assessment will activate their systems. After that, she will know just how good these cadets are. Her innate ability isn't a combat type like superhuman agility or rapid healing, but it's perfect for a drill instructor. She can see others' system status. With their uniforms prepped and their coveralls matched with the lightweight training boots that thankfully don't need polishing, Max and Nico clean up their mess and neatly organize their lockers. When the dorm is spotless, they head out to lunch, getting away from the crying, complaints and not-so-patient explanations that fill the first-year dorms. They're both certain a dorm check is coming soon, they're just not sure when, and they don't want to end up on punishment detail like most of their class will be. In addition to the cafeteria on their floor, there is another they can use on the main floor. It's open to all, but Max understands that with its improved menu, it will be dominated by the top classes. But they have arrived early enough that it shouldn't be too busy. The appearance of a pair of fist years, their coveralls freshly steamed free of wrinkles by the in-room laundry machine that most cadets don't figure out for weeks, startles the cafeteria supervisor. But they pass muster with every required element in order, so he allows them to join the short line and points them to a corner of the room next to the kitchens. The others are avoiding the kitchen noise, which always makes it the last place to fill, a small blessing for the two brave young souls. Upstairs the lunch meal is tasteless protein sandwiches with a vegetable soup. Here they get the option of 4 lunch sets. Max doesn't recognize any of them, the names are all generic, and the cadets are assumed to know what the dish name means. Unfortunately, neither of them read the menu before coming here and there are no pictures. 2 lunch C sets with juice please. Nico tells the worker with a smile and pulls Max along before he can decide. The last 6 students all ordered it. She whispers and Max nods. They're in their final years here, so they wouldn't order anything awful. It turns out to be meatloaf and mashed potatoes. Max gives Nico a look as if to say seriously and she just shrugs, digging into her meal. Tomorrow we can check the menus first. But at least it's not a recombined protein sandwich. For some reason it's served with a tube of spicy processed cheese. Max isn't sure what that's about, so he checks the mind of the seniors and finds it's a very popular condiment here, but not needed for this meal and usually saved. Max grabs both packs and tosses them to a group of seniors who are giving them dirty looks, making the boys smile. Good call, Junior. You just might get along here. Their leader laughs, spreading the cheese on the noodles of his set A lunch. Again, the call comes for the first-year class to get to the courtyard. They're only 20 meters away from there in the cafeteria, so they finish eating quickly and take their places in the front row. In front of them an obstacle course and a variety of strength training activities are being assembled, making them glad the major recommend the light and comfortable version of the uniform for today's class. Max listens into the minds passing by as they wait for the other cadets and learns that the coveralls may be rolled to the elbows without being out of regulation, so he does his, finding that the uniforms are even more comfortable this way. In the end they stand there for 3 whole hours while cadets are reprimanded for a wide variety of failures, often being sent to correct them and then running a lap of the building. The older students watch in amusement at the spectacle, having the whole afternoon free, since they're not starting their own semester's classes for one more day. Now that you've finally learned to dress yourselves, let's see if you can walk across the lawn without getting yourself dirty. A drill sergeant named Zam calls out and a cheer goes up from the spectators. Pay up punks, I told you they'd clear uniform drill in one shot. The boy Max gave their cheese tubes to cheers, making Max struggle to hide his smile. Nico, Max, to the obstacle course, you're up first. Humanity's Greatest Mecha Warrior System. Chapter 6, System Activation. The obstacle course that they are facing is a more extreme challenge than Max had seen on many of the television shows his father watched. It started with a rope climb to a set of monkey bars across a mud pit. Then came the rope net crossing to a rappelling wall, followed by a run across the field through swinging hammers with padded heads. Last up was the log run over a pool and then the finish line. The fact they think a child could manage this is insane. Sure, it's scaled to their size, but the strength and agility required would have to match a well-built adults to complete these tasks. Max chalks his hands on the bag at the start and begins climbing the rope. It's easier than expected with the rope fastened top and bottom and well-placed knots, but Nico was just as fast up her side. Determined to win, Max takes the monkey bars 2 at a time, gaining some distance from the smaller cadet, and begins to cross the net. It's set up like a hammock and turns easily underneath him, almost dumping him off. Nico knows some trick, though, and smoothly runs down the center, making the rappelling wall just in front of Max. Neither bothers with the harness, simply grabbing the rope and running down the wall. Max swings away and lands on his feet running, while Nico tucks and rolls, getting dirt and grass in her short black hair. Timing the hammers is hard, and Max takes a hit from the third one he passes, hurling him to the ground. System active. Welcome user Max. Compatibility determined rank A. Primary attribute STR 2.5x modifier. STR plus 0%. Dex plus 0%. SPD plus 0%. Innate talent mind reading. Additional functions locked. When Max wakes up, he's on a mat by the finish line, next to a partially dry Nico. She must have made it to the pool before her system activated. A fresh pair of cadets is challenging the course now, one falling from the first rope, one from the monkey bars. The staff quickly recovers them and brings them to the finish line while their system activates, and 2 more cadets are called. None even make it as far as the rappelling wall before their system activates, but now that he knows the purpose, Max understands that the distance you cover isn't the point, the course is only designed to activate the system that is dormant in the new cadets. Beside him, Nico opens her eyes and looks around in confusion before nodding her head and closing her eyes again. Seconds later, the soft rhythm of her breathing changes, and Max realizes she's fast asleep. That's a talent Max is a bit envious of. He's always had trouble sleeping, so he watches the last of the contests instead. Once they're all finished and awake, Major Payne gets the lesson started with a shout. Class attention! Nico leaps to her feet and into a foreign-ready stance with one hand on her hip and the other on top of it. Before her eyes even open, she shifts to the academy attention position under the curious gaze of the drill sergeants. Maybe it's a martial arts stance, Max thinks, then scans her thoughts and realizes she was going for a gun. Keeping her memories meant keeping her habits, and immediate combat readiness had been trained into her during her previous life. Max makes a mental note not to wake her up suddenly. Now that you've all had your systems activated, we can begin your lesson. The core stats of the system improve through practice. How much they improve entirely depends on your compatibility and effort. Deltas, you will get 0.1% per upgrade. Gamma rank gets 0.5%. Betas get 1%, while alpha rank compatibility gets 2%. Your primary stat will get a little more. Cadet Max, what is your primary stat and the modifier? Strength ma'am, with the 2.5 times modifier. Outstanding cadet. That's the largest I've seen in all my years. Cadet Gomez, what is your primary stat and the modifier? Dexterity, ma'am, with the 1.2 times modifier. That is typical for Delta rank. The rest of you should fall somewhere in between those modifiers. A drill sergeant steps forward to continue the lesson. If you want to improve your system status, you must work hard. Training that is appropriate to a stat will have a chance to level up that stat bonus. Every stat is important, and you cannot start unlocking additional abilities of the system until you get to 50% total improvement. Major Payne smiles at the students again, and many begin to suspect her friendly smile is not really friendly. As you increase an ability, it gets harder and harder to get gains. So, you will all take a holistic approach to training. Every ability is necessary, either in hand-to-hand combat or inside a mecha. Who can tell us the most important stat for melee combat mecha? You, in the second row. Answer. The drill sergeant Zam orders. Is it dexterity? The student answers, and Max prepares himself for the verbal lashing the cadet is about to receive. You will address drill instructors as sir. Every time you speak to them, you will start and end with sir. Do you understand me, cadets? Zam yells. That was much more gentle than Max expected. Even his parents were more intense than that. Sir, yes, sir. Outstanding cadets. But the answer is not dexterity. Cadet Nico, what is the answer? Sir, a melee pilot needs strength, sir. Excellent. Now, who can tell me why they need strength? Cadet Max. Sir, melee mecha pilots take huge amounts of impact and gravitational forces. Without sufficient strength, a pilot cannot properly control the mecha during rapid maneuvers, sir. Very good. Inside the mecha, dexterity is needed to move between controls. Speed is needed to enter commands fast enough to survive. But strength is needed to keep control when a 50-ton, angry Cygnus mecha tries to use you like a rag doll. That thought makes many of the students pale, while a few share eager looks. They're all here hoping to become mecha pilots, but not all will succeed. Some will be chosen for their skills in repair or tactics as support and logistics personnel. Some will be moved to an infantry program for their complete lack of talent. That's what happened to Dave, and Max knows from reading his mind the horrors that wait down the path of infantry in a modern battle. Chapter 7, Gains. Now that you've learned what the system is, we will train and get you your first gains. All students who have strength as their primary attribute follow Sergeant Zam. If you have dexterity as your primary stat, follow Sergeant Farhan. Those who have speed as their primary, stay here with me. Major Payne instructs. Max can see that his group has easily 3/4 of the students, with quite a few going to the dexterity course. But surprisingly, only Nico is standing with Major Payne. Speed must not be a common stat to have as your primary. The strength training station is exactly what Max expected it to be. Free weights, resistance machines, and heavy things to move. Most of those are too much for the first-year students, so Max decides to start his usual workout with curls and then try out the full-body resistance trainer. He's never seen such a thing before, and it looks pretty intense. He finds a good spot and begins his workout, ignoring the horseplay and chaos around him, much to Sergeant Zam's delight. Supervising first-year students is seen almost as a punishment detail for many within the instructor corps, and Zam is no exception. He trains cadets in physical and combat skills, while the first-year student typically has zero understanding of either one. Even one student that has an existing workout routine is enough to brighten his day. The resistance machine is busy with a student trying to understand how it works, so Max moves on to weighted lunges, carefully watching for the first update notification from his new system. Across the field from where he's working, Nico and Major Payne seem to be engaged in some form of fight with sticks. Max is pretty sure it's a martial art that they're practicing, but the speed they're swinging the wooden rods at each other is impressive. The pattern is repetitive, he notices, not testing their talent today, and the fundamental objective is to keep up with your opponent, so you don't get hit. His 50 lunges are almost up when Max sees his first gain notification and checks his system interface. Compatibility determined rank A. Primary attribute STR 2.5x modifier. STR plus 5%. Dex plus 0%. SPD plus 0%. Innate talent mind reading. Additional functions locked. Being of A-ranked compatibility, he gets a 2% base increase, but his primary stat strength modifier bonus put him up to a full 5% in a single gain during his first session. The fancy resistance machine is now available, the previous student had given up on learning it, so Max heads over to give it a try. There are well-worn written instructions on the machine: step into the harness, press the green button to engage the sizing feature, then begin your workout. The trainer will adjust the resistance as it sees fit, a marvel of high-tech training. There's an assortment of objects and a VR headset to keep the training interesting, so Max engages the feed, picks up a racket and picks a tennis program. There's lots of movement involved, so it should be a good workout. Strength gain. STR plus 10%. The buzzer signaling the end of the physical training session pulls him back from his tennis match, and Max notices his entire body is so sore he can hardly move. Fortunately, Nico waited for him and was willing to help him up the stairs. She isn't a big person, but his roommate had to practically carry him to the 8th floor where they live after his legs gave out at the first landing. You're stronger than you look. Max laughs, doing his best to struggle up the last flight. No, I'm just smart enough not to spend 2 straight hours in a resistance trainer. Plus, with my healing rate, the bruises from playing sticks with Major Payne are almost gone. Max can see what she means. Fading bruises are all over her hands and arms from missing a block and getting hit with the bamboo sticks. He's certain it must have been painful to have left such wicked-looking bruises, but Nico doesn't appear to mind. I hope you got something to make this all worth it. I'm definitely not carrying you again if you didn't at least get 1 gain. Nico huffs as they finally make the top floor and head for the dining hall to grab an evening meal. Get a gain? I got 2 today. With my modifier being strength, I'll have a much easier time of it tomorrow. Max tries to smile through the exhaustion. But I'm setting the timer. How did you make out? 2 gains for me as well. Major Payne is an excellent training partner. I don't think I'll do as well if I have to practice alone or with one of the other first-year cadets. Nico drops him in a red plastic cafeteria chair and goes to get them something to eat, coming back with bowls of chili and warm bread loaves. A staff member brings them a large jug of ice water, and Max does his best to smile at her. Don't worry, dear. Someone always overdoes it the first day. Some of them haven't even made it back to the building. I can still see them lying in the grass after the sergeants forced the slackers to exercise. That makes him feel a little better, at least he wasn't the only one who couldn't handle the workout he picked or had picked for him. By the time they finish eating, Max has begun to recover, the nanobots in his body working to repair the damaged tissue from the workout and implement the changes for his upgrades. After a system stat upgrades, the effects aren't quite instant. At the lower levels, where the difference between upgrades was more significant, it would take the system time to make the changes, up to an hour in some cases. The instructors are still carrying recruits up to their rooms when Max crawls into bed, noticing something strange about how Nico uses the data screen on the wall. He can't tell what she's browsing, but she's not touching the screen to navigate. Is that a feature of the high-tech device? Or possibly an aspect of her innate ability? Chapter 8, Innate Abilities. Max decides that tomorrow when they're both well rested and fed, would be a much better time to ask Nico about her innate ability, so he lets sleep overtake him. Tonight's rest is much easier to achieve than usual. The pure exhaustion of the day's exercise has overcome every obstacle to drag him instantly into slumber. He wakes up to a small hand on his chest, shaking him gently. Get up and get dressed, the cafeteria opens in 10 minutes, and we're going to fix your hair first. They let it slide yesterday, but if you don't tie it back or cut it, they'll most likely penalize you today. Max chuckles happily as he gets into his uniform. The white pants with a black Academy logo polo shirt and a black beret seem to be the male cadet version of fatigues, the less formal summer uniform for general purposes. That should do for the morning lessons, and it's what Nico picked, though the female version of the first-year cadet uniform uses a dark grey shirt instead. According to what they found online, the girls are much more likely to wash out of piloting classes, and the logistics and operations staff all wears shirts in that same grey, but a different style, while infantry cadets wear green uniforms. If they make it to the third year in the piloting program, all cadets in the program wear the same black shirts, but with a stripe on the collar to mark them as pilots in training. It's a bit annoying to Max that they put the data screens so far up the wall. Even for the adults, they're above eye level, plus they're touch activated, and he can't reach them without a stool. But Nico doesn't need to, it seems. She can make them work from wherever she is standing. What did you have in mind for my hair? Max asks, grabbing his beret from his locker. Regulation crew cut work for you? Or do you like it longer? A regulation crew cut sounds absolutely amazing to Max, but then he thinks of Sergeant Zam, with his flat top haircut and blonde hair that closely matches Max's own. Can you do it like Sergeant Zam? How good are you at doing hair? Max asks quietly, not wanting to wake anyone in the surrounding rooms. I do my own, but don't worry, I have a digital clipper. Max isn't sure exactly what that is, but it sounds professional, so he nods. A digital clipper turns out to be a mesh towel of sorts. It sits over his head, adjusts shape to whatever Nico is instructing it to do with that strange ability of hers, and then with a wave of buzzing, Max has a brand new haircut, safely within regulations, and Nico collects the blonde tresses of his perm. She ties one small portion in a bundle and tosses the rest in the trash bin. The bundle she places on the top shelf of his open locker and then pushes it closed with a smile. A keepsake to remember your first days of pilot training. According to the screen, we've got introductory core studies from 7 in the morning until lunch, and then physical training from 1300 until 1600. Max doesn't understand her timekeeping system, so he gives her a confused look. Oh, sorry, that's 1 in the afternoon until 4 in the afternoon. They'll likely go over that this morning in the core studies class, but the Kepler military counts the whole day in a row, all 24 standard hours. 100 is the 00 that means right on the hour. Fortunately for us, Kepler terminus has a disbarred length day. Come to think of it, Max had heard Dave using terms like that before. But without a set schedule, learning to tell time wasn't a priority for him. He can read a digital clock well enough to know when food delivery should be arriving, though. Thanks for the haircut, but aren't those things usually attached to a tablet or something? Max asks, changing the topic as they head for the mess hall. Controlling nearby technology is my innate skill. It was too warm in the car on the way home from the hospital, so I rolled down the window, and that was that. My innate ability was set. Nico laughs. She makes it sound so basic, but she can navigate menus and set the shape of a digital mesh without seeing the software, so it's not a weak or simple skill that she awakened. I can see other people's surface thoughts, Max says quietly, not wanting to alert the whole class to his ability. Now that's handy, you'll always know when they have a surprise planned. Just keep me in the loop, I detest surprises. Max suspects few things surprise her, with a lifetime of military memories and the ability to search through technological devices. He isn't sure that she can hack or bypass passwords, but with a skill like hers, she's probably learned how to by now. Even he learned the trick to cracking basic security from Dave so he could pirate games off the datanet. Being the first ones to breakfast, they've got time to custom order, so they both get fully loaded omelets with battered bread, an egg-covered pastry concoction Nico drenched in syrup. An hour before class started, Major Payne came to the top floor mess hall to eat and found her 2-star pupils going over the cafeteria schedules on one of the wall screens. The worker nodded to indicate that they'd already eaten, so Major Payne wondered what they were up to. Were they meal planning from the available options? That's a bit unusual for 12-year-olds, even if their mental growth has been enhanced. That's today, but the next day, everything served downstairs looks strange at lunch. If we come back up here, they've got the coconut soup which looks pretty good, and the chocolate protein shakes. Max says to Nico, who sighs sadly. It's a long walk, but that's fine. The schedule says the seniors get out of training an hour after we do, so we should be able to sneak in dinner from the downstairs cafeteria and recover before they get out of class both days. The major is a bit shocked, not only at their knowledge but their planning skills and the fact they hacked the class schedules. Or maybe they asked someone at lunch yesterday. That's a possibility, though the seniors usually don't give much help to the first years. They disappear, and the major quickly finishes her meal and starts to work. Everybody up. Classes start in 30 minutes. Get dressed, get fed, and get to class on time if you don't want to run laps all afternoon. Literacy skills are in the South Wing, room 17. She and her sergeants will be escorting the main group there of course, since it's their first day, but she's eager to see who all might manage to make it to the class on their own and who won't even think to fall in with the group. Chapter 9, Sorting begins. Max and Nico arrive well before the others and take a spot near the door. Front right seems to be their position of choice everywhere they go, but in this classroom it's everyone's choice. The morning sunlight beats down across the left half the room and there are no blinds. It's hot, bright, and distracting to students who would rather be outside playing. Max wonders if it's intentional, then decides that's a pointless thought. Of course, it is. Everything here is a deliberate test. The friendly-looking young corporal teaching the class hands them their class books, and Max bursts into laughter while Nico hides hers by biting her fist. Is something funny, cadets? The teacher's tone doesn't sound so kind now. Sir, no sir. It's just that the book is an introduction to the Kepler standard alphabet, and we can both already read the language, sir. Nico responds while Max struggles to regain his composure. Most planets use a local dialect with its own written language, so not a lot of cadets arrive knowing the standard alphabet. War might be the fate for half the population, the ones with a system, but the parents at home are rarely enthusiastic about sending their children to their fate, and nobody uses the standard alphabet here on Kepler Terminus. The teacher's face has reverted back into a kindly half-smile, and he drops a digital tablet on their desks and collects the first books. Take those to the testing booths across the hall and fill them out. That standard assessment will help with your placement, so do your best. Max recognizes the symbol in the corner as meaning that the device is connected to the Academy's internal data net and resists the urge to hack it. It's the military academy, of course they would notice if he uses a password algorithm on their tablet. With the fist to the chest Kepler salute, they leave the room and pick adjacent stalls for the test. The testing stations are soundproof and have no windows to keep the students from cheating off of each other. That's not going to stop this dynamic duo, though. Max sees the first bits are simple reading and writing skills tests, so he takes out the stylus and quickly completes the first few sections. Then it's on to the very basics of mecha control panel layout. Anyone who has used the simulator will know this, so again, he flies through it. The third is the basic mechanical layout of the line mecha. Not much was available about this in the public data network, so Max looks it over for clues, then decides to see how Nico is doing, using his innate talent to check her mind. She not only knows everything, but she's also corrected a deliberate mistake in the exam itself. Max sorts through her mind, trying to memorize everything he can without directly copying her answers. That's not too hard, it's just a mechanical schematic, no more complicated than modifying a VR headset to bypass the boot-up restrictions so he can play black market games. With that essential knowledge, he moves all the parts on the screen to their correct locations and then double-checks them against Nico's work. It looks right, so he moves to the final section on basic piloting techniques. He already knows this from the multiplayer simulators, so he fills in everything as best as he knows it and then goes over the whole test again, looking for mistakes. In the exam monitoring room, Sergeant Zam is at a loss for words. Both students are on camera, and every entry into the tablet is monitored and recorded. The fact they aced the first year writing portion was a given, but they didn't make any mistakes on the second and third year portions either. Then they moved on to the mecha control layout portion. A third-year final test that identifies and correctly places every major control component in the line class mecha. They also got perfect scores on that portion, with only Cadet Max needing to adjust an answer. The same again on the mechanical layout. Cadet Max made no mistakes this time, he just took a more systematic approach that slowed him down, compared to Cadet Nico. The room the instructors are in is shielded against system intrusion, so they can't be using their innate skills on the observers. If it even has that much range. The only possible answer he can come up with is that one or both of them already know this information that should be confidential to anyone outside the academy. Possibility cadets have used innate skills to learn required information through year 3 after entering the academy, Sergeant Zam notes as he watches them finish their tests. The information he has says they're both veterans of the civilian multiplayer simulators, so the fact they know the essentials of control isn't a surprise, but it does pose a problem. This is the third year's placement exam. After completing this, the standard course cadets will be sorted into their career paths by aptitude, and not just by washing out of a program. Those with uniquely suitable skills would officially start a trade program and finish the next 3 years getting ready for the intensive career training at the university, while those who didn't qualify as any form of specialists would begin infantry training immediately. But how do you place a student who scored perfectly in everything? Sergeant Sam snaps a picture on his personal encrypted device and sends the final scores and student information to an old friend much further up in the command structure. Surely the general will know what to do with two such outstanding cadets. The testing room don't unlock until 30 minutes before the lunch break, and both cadets race out of the building after being dismissed by Sergeant Sam, wanting to make it to the cafeteria before the seniors line up. Today they've got the good enchiladas for lunch here, and that's not a meal either of them wants to miss. They take their places at the loudest table near the kitchen and dig in while the amused upper-level students get their lunch. Everyone pulls tubes of the spicy cheese out of their uniforms, and Max understands why it's a valuable commodity. The meal doesn't come with it, but it would make it way better. That's valuable survival information in Max's mind. He will have to obtain more of the cheese tubes. After lunch, they return to the workout area, and Max heads straight for the resistance machine. It's a full-body workout and can upgrade all stat categories, though it focuses on strength. Since the goal is 50 total points of bonus for the first years, this is his best option. Today, Nico joins him, taking the next machine and activating a sparring scenario. Max ignored those because the haptic feedback was incredibly painful when you got hit, and you would be hit a lot. Instead, he picked a strongman competition today that was marked as suitable for cardio. Endurance might not be in the first categories of stats, but the system says there's more to be unlocked. In a long battle, Max is certain stamina matters a lot more than fancy piloting. Chapter 10, They're not normal. Both of the Year 1 Class 1 leaders are already obvious to the training staff. Not only are they years ahead of their peers in school work, they're also dedicated to their training, with impressive system modifiers. Cadet Max has an incredible 2.5 times modifier in strength, but Nico has a 2x modifier in speed plus a 1.5x modifier for dexterity, a rare double primary. The dexterity modifier isn't all that great, being high gamma ranked, and even the speed modifier is very low alpha rank, but together, they should make for very efficient training. Both cadets are gaining quickly, even for students of their compatibility scores, and Major Payne is keeping close tabs. Regulations say they must remain in Year 1 classes until they've reached 50% total bonus, and cannot graduate in the piloting program unless they've reached 100% total. Ideally she would like to move them both to Year 3 next semester, to more closely match their training to their skills. But that means more intensive physical skills classes, and there is no guarantee that this rate of growth will hold. It's not strictly regulation, but it's not prohibited, so Major Payne decides to change the settings for them on the trainers from smooth growth to maximum system gains. It's usually used as a punishment setting for cadets that slack and are in danger of flunking a year due to insufficient progress. Even a few hours under those settings are pure torture. But when she opens the menu, they're already changed. She didn't see anyone else near them, but someone already set the machines for maximum progress. Major Payne suspects Sergeant Sam is the culprit, but she's not going to say anything to her supervisors until she has some sort of evidence. Instead she waits and watches as the two cadets train for an hour at maximum intensity, then go grab a drink from the provided bottles. They're not water, but a form of energy drink designed to help recover energy and repair damaged tissue. Instead of moving on to a low-intensity activity, as she had expected, they both take a 10-minute break, then resume their previous training programs. None of the other cadets dare touch their machines after seeing the workout those two received, and the consensus among the first-year class is that those two are simply masochists. Again they repeat the process, taking a break and a drink, but this time they switch programs. Now Max is doing dexterity and speed training while Nico is training primarily strength. Compared to their classmates, the two with alpha-ranked systems have a huge advantage in increasing their status bonuses. After a full year of this, most gamma-ranked students will succeed in getting their 50 points to continue along the advanced piloting track. Almost every cadet with a delta-ranked system will be moved to a basic path or to a different specialty. The beta-ranked students are usually the issue. They have it just easy enough to slack, getting an upgrade every few days to reach their goal, and it tends to make them arrogant and kill their motivation. What the instructors hope is that the clear advantage that these two alpha-ranked overachievers will gain through their hard work will motivate the others. Max had time for 4 full cycles of training before the cafeteria opens for dinner, and he's made real progress again today. At this rate, the expectations of the academy are a joke, but it's possible the gains will slow down a lot as his skills increase. Compatibility determined rank A. Primary attribute STR 2.5x modifier. STR plus 20%. Dex plus 2%. SPD plus 2%. Innate talent mind reading. Additional functions locked. Major Payne, what are the base stats? The system bonuses list as a percentage, but the base isn't there, ma'am. Max asks, confused about how to interpret the data. It's in your locked skills, but I can tell you in advance. Every student will start out with a base of 1 in every stat, except those with alpha-ranked compatibility, who will begin with 2. Once you reach 50% total bonus, your physical abilities will increase from that of a growing child to that of an adult in a child's body. It's the system's way of rewarding you for hard work. They're only on day 2 of having the system, and already Max is at 24% total bonus. He's not sure if that's normal for people like him, in the top 1% of compatibility, but there's an easy way to check. Class 2 isn't that far away and they're also training outside. Max focuses hard on the childhood friend of Nico who was also alpha ranked, looking for thoughts of where his abilities are at. He's also been using the resistance trainer, though Max can sense that he's not pushing himself, smug in his superiority as the only alpha ranked student in his class. But where Max has seen 6 total upgrades, Nathan just finally got his first one, giving him 4.5% more strength. So he's got a 2.25x modifier on his strength, which is pretty solid, though not as lucky as Max. His teachers and classmates are fawning over his achievement and how he might even get to the cap in only a few months. They're in for a huge shock when the year-wide student progress rankings come out. Major pain, is it possible to increase the base stats, once they're active? Nico asks curiously, beating Max to the question. Possible, yes. But it's not easy. Some students will increase a base stat through hard work, an innate skill or a system reward, but most pilots will end their career with the base stat level they began with. Most pilots likely doesn't apply to Max though, he already understood that he won the genetic lottery in this lifetime, so he had high hopes for at least 1 or 2 bonus points. Though if a base of 1 is average adult, and 2 is exceptional, even 1 or 2 would be a huge advantage over the general population. The energy juice today was a lifesaver, and Max even manages to drag himself up the stairs this time, using the stairs and railings for support and locking arms with Nico who is in similarly bad shape, but still, they made it up the stairs and got showered before bed. Chapter 11, The Freshman Challenge. Within the week, Major Payne has the entire class on a strict schedule, shouts echoing through the hallway signifying their change of tasks every time an alarm goes off. Class, meals, workouts, breaks. Everything is structured now. But Nico and Max aren't with the group for most of the morning anymore, instead they've been assigned 2 separate morning instructors. Sergeant Zam to teach them more about mecha piloting, and Sergeant Farhan to teach them advanced mathematics and history. They can read well enough for the sergeants, so literacy skills have been pushed aside for the semester, while the academy tests the limits of their abilities. With Nico's help Max has managed to organize the class into evening study groups to help the kids that are falling way behind in their reading comprehension. Most either couldn't read Kepler Standard, or couldn't read the language well when they arrived, but that is quickly changing, with their entire morning being dedicated to it and the assistance of the improved cognitive abilities inherent to higher rank system users. His goal is to make sure they're not a class of disorganized individuals, but a single unit working towards a goal as well as proving he is a capable leader, worthy of notice and promotion. This environment is like heaven to Max, no drunks, nobody disappearing to get high, no dangerous criminals hiding between buildings, just order and camaraderie. At this rate the first class competition will be a massacre. One of the military observers who is watching over everything through cameras mounted all over the campus notes, while reviewing the materials being taught to the 2 advanced students. Those 2 are natural leaders. The other class looks exactly like we would expect a class of children to look. Class 1 barely needs teachers with Cadet Nico Max around. Major Payne laughs, using their odd attachment to label them as one singular person. There's something off about Cadet Max though. Another observer notes. His innate talent is a form of mind reading that he uses for memory duplication. I suspect that repeatedly using it on Cadet Nico and the instructors to cheat on the assigned schoolwork has subtly changed his personality, but there's no solid proof that he has been doing it so we can't reprimand him. Major Payne's assessment makes everyone laugh. Such an amazing skill for a shirking student. Do we know the limitations of Cadet Nico's technology-based skill? Colonel Black asks the room but nobody answers. Really, no ideas? A 12-year-old is keeping secrets from you, the finest educators and interrogators on the planet. He laughs. It's hacking related. Major Payne begins, she regularly penetrates school digital security to get an advantage on upcoming assignments and gather other data. But we don't know what exactly the skill can do. The observers have gathered with the senior staff because today marks the freshman challenge. Each class has been ordered to do something that will shock their instructors and prove their worth. Class 2 is going to break into the teacher's lounge and go for the answer keys. A daring task for sure. But Class 1 has not spoken openly, following Max's suggestions and using hidden notes on edible paper saved from their meals to plan their stunt. That alone shows the observers that they know they're monitored and can adjust their tactics to compensate. Are these really 12-year-old kids? A teacher asks. Even though they're all elites with 2 alpha rank leaders, this level of organization is remarkable. The results they've achieved so far are mostly from applying the military skills Nico retained upon reincarnation, but this entire first-year class is outstanding well beyond their rank, they just don't have anything to compare themselves to. A deliberate action by the Academy to prevent them from being influenced by outside factors. What they have planned is a 2-pronged strategy. First up, the class is going to meet up in front of the Class 2 dorms. The 5th through 7th years are out on a wilderness training mission right now, so Nico is going to loop the cameras and Max is going to lead the class to stage an underwear raid in the Class 2 dorms, using his own hacking skills to pop open the biometric locks. While that is attracting the instructor's attention, Nico will escape out to the senior fairgrounds where advanced line mecha handling is being taught, with the plan being for her to commandeer a mecha and steal the school flag from the post on the roof. With their smaller bodies and her ability to command electronic systems remotely, she's the only one in the class who could possibly do it. That fact annoys Max to no end, but there's nothing her can do about it at the moment. Soon he will be able to prove his worth. That's the plan she managed to convince Max to agree to anyhow, with the wholehearted agreement of the others. Max is in charge of the raid and he's planning to make it look like they are going full in for the 7th years, but actually loot the first year's lockers while they are out on their own mission and hang their underwear on the power lines outside. Because picking on the seniors might actually get them beat up, but they're not afraid of the first years. Max nods the go-ahead and Nico loops the cameras before getting out of bed and escaping while Max is rousing the others who are eagerly waiting in their beds, pretending to be asleep. As Nico heads to the fairgrounds, she sees the other classes right on time. Class 2 has already entered the school building, so only 3 years are present in the dorms for Max and the rest to sneak past. There's a guard patrol out here looking over the parked mecha that Nico couldn't do anything about, they're not online connected for her to hack, and she's not close enough yet to do anything to their sensors. So she waits until the patrol is on the far side of his loop to rush towards the parked Academy issue line mecha, using her talent to override the locks and open the hatch to the driver's compartment. Step 1 complete. Next is the tricky part, she needs to power the mecha up as silently as possible, with no lights on, and make her escape while the guard is distracted by one of the classes. Primary power is up, secondary is up, the radio crackles to life and Nico turns it down to a whisper, dimming the dash lights to nothing at the same time. Alright, the line mecha is ready to go at any moment. She can't reach the controls, but using her innate talent for control works well enough for basic movement. Nico then straps herself in as securely as possible, the shoulder straps not designed for such a diminutive pilot. The second class has just failed their mission, they're jumping out windows from the main floor of the school building, trying to escape with the answer keys. They were so obvious that even Class 1 knew what they were up to from whispers in the hallways, it's no surprise that the academy was on to them as well. It's go time. She leaps into action as the patrol mecha is distracted, blending in with all the other sudden movement as guards respond to Class 2. Only she heads to the roof of the school, not the main floor. The flagpole stands 20 meters high above the roof, nothing but a mecha would get a student up there. The grab is good and the flag pops free, Nico landing as gently as possible in the far side of the school and ditching the mecha to return to the Class 1 dorm with her stolen loot. 5 minutes later the rest of the class comes Indiana laughing, the first year Class 2's favorite underwear are out on the power lines. The administration was so into watching Class 2 and their epic failure that they didn't think to check the cameras for tampering during those 15 minutes. The hacking knowledge Max acquired from Dave worked flawlessly, letting them into every room's lockers at the same time, where the students grabbed a single pair of underwear from each locker before writing the room number on them and locking the door behind them. The gigantic school flag is proudly hung in the first-year common area, tacked up on the roof, as the wall wasn't high enough to prevent it dragging on the floor, which would be a punishable disrespect to the flag. Nobody mention it. Max instructs. See how long it takes them to notice. Nico laughs and with a thought she returns the cameras to normal, but they all forgot one vital fact. A gigantic flag is now blocking all the cameras in the common room. Chapter 12, Victory. Congratulations on your wonderful display of undergarments Class 1. Major pain begins as she walks into the common room and finds all her students waiting for her. You didn't, how in the Empire did you manage to get that? Is that the school flag from the roof? Yes Major. We accept your appreciation for a mission successfully completed. Thank you for this opportunity Major. Nico and Max say in unison. It's almost noon before the school understands what happened, the splice in the camera footage was so smooth they almost missed the hack. But in their review of the patrol mech footage, they saw the park student line mecha rushing to the school as if to help and it all fell into place from there. That operation is beautiful. Whoever it is runs the machine as well as any student in the school. One of the senior class supervisors sighs. Shouldn't it be a first-year student? How would they even manage it? It's a trainer line mech, all physical controls, it's not set up with a neural link. I'd like to meet the first year that can even reach the foot controls from the chair. Could they have done it while standing up? Colonel Black sighs. But I can guarantee I know who it was. Cadet Nico, the hacker. Clearly there's more to her skill than just hacking the cockpit locks, and the school's cameras. I believe the raid on the dorms was all Cadet Max though. Unless we've overlooked another student with talent, it should be that Max was the one who opened the lockers. An observer points out. By reading minds to get the override code when dorm inspections are being done? That's a possibility as well. Colonel Black agrees. All day long the students of Class 2 sulk about getting caught, claiming that Class 1 set them up and tipped off the teachers. The academy doesn't tolerate failure, so they're all on extended hours this week, and a modified cafeteria menu, with all the lowest requested options. Max winces at the thought that such misfortune might have been their fate, had they been caught. Nothing but the most bland of recombined protein products, with the side of that strange soup that smells like old socks. They've made it through the most restricted period of their education now though, and the luxuries and digital devices they brought from home are being returned to them, with the requirement that it not interfere with their school work. This too is a test, to see if they can stay focused under temptation, but all content that wasn't educational or school approved had been removed from their devices, and access to the open data net is strictly unavailable. That's not going to stop everyone though, especially a pair of hackers who are much too advanced in their schoolwork. Nico brought 2 full VR headsets with her, in case one broke. Packed full of her clothing, they took almost no additional room in her pack, and Max is incredibly grateful that she brought the extra. An Academy internal network only, military-approved version is available from the commissary for 60 standard credits, and comes loaded with schoolwork approved for their class level, but neither of them is willing to spend that much. In fact, they've spent nothing at all except for the first round of essentials. Max isn't sure what they're saving for, but the first-year class is so restricted that anything they could get would be a waste of money. With some careful hacking and borrowed knowledge, Nico and Max managed to obtain a VR simulator program for the Crusader-class giant mecha that is intended as a reward for top-performing senior class students. It took a little tweaking of their headset's user detection to adjust their body sizes in-game to be able to work the mecha, but they've got it functioning correctly now and it's saved as a physics learning program in their VR units. VR gaming is a popular pastime for students, but their access is strictly controlled, only approved and class-appropriate learning materials are permitted to enter the school, and no outside network access is allowed at all. Still, it's better than most of the options they have, especially for the upperclassmen, who are already learning piloting and repair courses, and as such get access to related content. Should we reprimand the 2 first years and confiscate the contraband program now, or wait to see what they do with it? The digital security officer asks Colonel Black after his weekly audit of the students' network access. Impressed the cadets managed to get through his security and gain access to the program at all. Wait until the winter break is over and then delete it. Officially it never existed on their headsets, but bring me a copy of their mission scores. Colonel Black would never let a true talent be wasted with black marks on their record. Plus, it was from the academy, so they're not accessing anything that the military would criticize him personally for allowing them access to. If he thinks of it as an advanced class, he can pretend there is nothing at all strange about his actions and even defend himself from accusations, should his superiors within the Education Ministry object. After the class challenge, the actual classes start to get more enjoyable, but the rate at which Max is getting gains from the system has fallen off dramatically. He had gotten 2 or more every day before that, but now that he's near 50 points, it's getting harder. Today his entire routine only gave 1 strength upgrade. Compatibility determined rank A. Primary attribute STR 2.5x modifier. STR plus 30%. Dex plus 6%. SPD plus 6%. Innate talent mind reading. Additional functions locked. He's so close to hitting that magical 50 bonus points that he can hardly contain himself. The prospect of being as strong as a full-grown adult is irresistible to him. Only a few more upgrades and he will be at the yearly goal, not even a month into his first semester. Major Payne has been busy with the other students, getting them motivated and progressing towards their goals, so she hasn't taken the time lately to see how the 2-star pupils are progressing. She checks in on their routine daily, giving tips and making sure they're balancing their workouts, so they're not going to be suffering from any lingering muscle pains, strains, or long-term fatigue, but she hasn't used her skill to see just what the results might be. Chapter 13, Goals. The 2 cadets expand their data collection the next day, after another status gain drought, adding the piloting program for the Kepler line mecha to their headsets. Though they're far from as glorious as the Crusader-class mecha, they're of more immediate concern to the 2, as they're the first mecha that ever students will train on. The other new program they got was a martial arts program directly from Sergeant Zam, to help build their hand-to-hand combat skills. Many cadets view that as unnecessary in an age of high-powered weapons, but in urban settings, close-quarters engagement is the norm and not the exception. Line mecha in the standard pattern are only 3 meters tall, with the pilot sitting reclined in the torso, so they often get in close to their targets in such scenarios, and not every enemy they face will be human, or even humanoid. The actual armament of a line mecha varies, but it's typically simple and either slow-firing or self-guided, like rocket pods. That makes them perfect for hand-to-hand combat training once Max has memorized some of the dozens of styles Nico knew in her past life. Compared to them, what they teach Academy students is laughable, but according to Dave, that's the basic close combat style for the entire Empire, only special forces are taught anything better. Unlike some other empires, the command structure of the Kepler Kingdom views ranged firepower as the great equalizer, and relies upon it for almost every situation. Line Mecha Combat is included in the program that Sergeant Zam sent them. It was just locked by their first-year class designation, a problem they quickly solved so that they could train both martial arts and mecha handling at the same time. The difference between in-person and in-mecha is huge, as the Line Mecha are fully manual controls, 2 sticks plus dozens of buttons, switches, and levers to control everything. For the most part you can keep your hands on the sticks, but more complex maneuvers are often done with one hand, while calibrating systems and sensors with the other. Far different than simply moving your own body to fight. Third time's a charm. Nico laughs the next day as they leave lunch, heading for the training grounds. They will both need at least 2 categories to update today in order to hit the goal, but they've got the feeling that it's coming soon. Today they pick the tennis simulator, and Nico cranks the machine back up to maximum stat gains, as she always does, making Max laugh. It's obvious the staff has noticed, and because they can't blame the students, they're blaming each other. Max would do the adjustments himself, but since he needs to actually touch the control panel and enter the changes, he would be caught in seconds. Nico can do it from inside the VR simulation, so even if they enter under standard settings it doesn't matter. Max is up 6 points to 5 when his strength finally increases. Strength gain. STR plus 35%. The change will take a while to apply, and they've got time, so Max goes for the win, trying to finish the match before their next hourly break. Dexterity gain. Dex plus 8%. Speed gain. SPD plus 8%. System functionality unlocked, base stats. STR2 plus 35%. Dex2 plus 8%. SPD2 plus 8%. He's so happy to see the notifications that he doesn't even try to block the tennis ball that smacks him in the forehead, making Nico laugh. Go, take your break, I'll finish up the timer against an AI opponent. She tells him, then he is forcefully kicked out of the simulation. As much as Max loves being able to read minds, that ability of hers is entirely unfair. At least when they're using VR tech it is. Nico leaves the resistance trainer only a few minutes later, so the instructors think nothing of the two taking an extended break and waiting on their stats to update. They've been so reliable with their training regimen that Max even notices that others are taking a longer than usual break, assuming that their time is up when he goes back to training. Let's try something different for a bit. Get some real sunlight through the eyes instead of projecting the images straight into the brain. Max suggests. Water rugby. Nico asks, and the students around them cheer. Water rugby is a team sport, you need multiple players per side or it's just boring. There isn't a real pool here, but the water obstacle under the log run does the job very well. They can stand in it, with water to their chest, and the logs are just another obstacle to play around. It's also harder than it sounds, pushing through the water, especially with another cadet hanging off your back, trying to pull you under and steal the ball. Sergeant Farhan has a new twist for them today, ankle and wrist weights as well as a weighted belt. The extra 2 kilos per limb isn't terrible, at least not at first, but the level of energy spent with the extra weight and the wet coveralls is much higher than simply playing on dry land. They call the game 20 minutes before the end of training, giving them some time to dry off, since the staff won't let you in the cafeteria covered in mud or dripping wet, and none of them want to change before they eat. To Sergeant Zam, that means it's time for the cadets to take a jog. The base layers dry out in seconds if they're not exposed to water, and the coveralls will dry rapidly in the wind. Hop to it, go, let's get you all pretty and dry for the cafeteria. Zam shouts, but doesn't push them hard enough, they'll really start sweating. He's on cafeteria duty today after all, and the fewer sweaty bodies there are in the room, the happier he is. Too many of the first years barely understand hygiene, or the necessity of washing clothes that aren't stained. Max's new base stats implement while he's eating, and Max can feel his uniform getting tighter. That's a known side effect of the process, it often pushes students through an accelerated early puberty, as the nanobots optimize them for adult life. He excuses himself to his dorm room, deciding that he can ask an instructor for new clothes in the morning, or if the change is not too drastic, simply go downstairs in his stretchy base layer and grab them from the commissary. Chapter 14, Puberty Sucks. When Max woke up in the morning nothing fit him. From clothes to shoes to even his bed, he had outgrown them all in the course of a single night. Forget the plan of going down to the commissary in his skivvies, he's definitely going to have to get someone to bring him a new uniform. He looks over to Nico, who had also broken past the 50% margin yesterday, and presumably had the same issues that he did, only to find the small figure still sleeping comfortably in bed. She certainly wasn't as small as she was last night, but Max grew quite a bit in a single night. Getting up, he found that he could now easily reach the data screen on the wall by the door, and began to scroll through for a way to get new clothes before realizing that he had no idea what his new size was. He didn't even know exactly how tall he was. Fortunately for him there is an easy way to find out your exact size here in the academy, in the form of a virtual reality headset. They might have hacked the ones they were using to adjust their size to be compatible with the cockpit size of the Crusader class mecha in the simulators, but the unit could still scan your body and tell you everything from your height and weight to your body mass index and if you needed a haircut to stay within regulations. So, Max put his set on and booted it up, asking it to run a user scan and report the data but not update any settings in the system at this time. He wasn't sure he'd be done growing at this point, and updating now might mess up their custom settings, making him a giant in the simulators. According to the headset, he had shot up to a whopping 170 centimeters tall, but still weighed only 39 kilos. He needed to eat to get enough calories into him for the nanobots to finish their work, but he couldn't very well do that naked. So, he went back to the data screen and paged Major Payne, who he knew would be up by this point anyhow. "This had better be good, cadet. I'm not your mother that you can just summon at will," she growled, coming into their dorm room with her morning coffee in hand. "My apologies, Major, but both of us went through the 50% activation last night, and now neither of us has anything to wear that even remotely fits. I wasn't sure what to do, but going naked to the commissary didn't seem like the greatest of plans," Max explains as the instructor looks at him in shock. Not only did both him and Cadet Nico get through the year's goal for system gains in under 2 weeks, but the boy had also undergone one of the more dramatic puberty upgrades, likely due to his strength-based primary stat. As you mature, the system helps shape your body to the bonuses that you've put into it, so a high-strength male would naturally be a large and bulky person, where a dexterity-specialized soldier like herself tended to be more on the lean side. Major Payne produced a tape measure from her pocket and started measuring Cadet Max, getting his arm and leg lengths, as well as his height, chest, and waist measurements. The process made Nico chuckle something about his 3 sizes, but Major Payne did the exact same to her, finding that she was still only 135 centimeters tall, shorter than average for the amount of maturing that her body had done overnight. The Major's estimation was that they would still need at least 2 or 3 days for the process to complete, so they were excused from classes, and an assortment of the regulation black uniform coveralls would be sent to their dorm in the meantime. She would be checking up on them 3 times a day, as well as twice daily visits from the doctors to ensure that they weren't having any issues, but if they felt any sort of pain they were to report to the infirmary immediately. That suited them just fine. They could take their time and recover, with a lot of food, and catch up on their simulator exercises that had been sacrificed these last few days in favor of extra time in the resistance trainer because they were trying for the last few gains to put them over the top. In the observation room, the news from Instructor Payne had everyone buzzing in excitement. Not just 1 but 2 cadets had come very close to, if not broken the Empire's growth rate records, and they were both at the same academy. That would be a great benefit for their careers, as the speed of a cadet's progress reflected directly on the efficiency and skill of the academy training them. The news spread quickly and quietly to many other places as well, with more than one set of ears being interested in the fate of these cadets. One in particular decided to use his sway and go see them for himself, volunteering as a course instructor for advanced mecha piloting at the Kepler Terminus Military Academy. Max knew nothing of this though, all he knew was the coveralls arrived in only a few minutes and they could go fill up at the cafeteria. Not only the uniform rules had been suspended for them during this time, the portion size rules had too. During the transition, getting as much energy as possible was more important than maintaining a healthy body weight and blood sugar levels, which the standard diets were designed to do. The only real problem was that growing hurt a lot. Every second of breakfast was agony as his body adjusted, and he didn't think that Nico was in any better shape, despite remaining much shorter. The entire day progressed that way, just a steady stream of calories for his body to burn and intense pain that no available painkiller would even begin to nullify. The doctors came by twice and confirmed that it was absolutely normal with a growth spurt as intense as his had been, but there wasn't much they could do about the pain without temporarily disabling the nanobots, which would cripple his advancement, and possibly his body as well. Chapter 15, Special Benefits. Being so far ahead of the curve left the teachers assigned to cadets Nico and Max in turmoil. If they kept pushing themselves, they might quickly surpass even the average third-year students, which would be a nightmare for the placement exams and training schedules. But if they held them back there would be hell to pay with their superiors for stunting the children's growth. They had a few months to make their final decision still while the 2 cadets suffered through the progression and their bodies adapted, but after that something would need to be decided. What they eventually came up with, at Major Payne's insistence, was to allow them full use of the line mecha training programs in their off time, as well as special dispensation to go home for the fall break. First-year students had never earned the privilege before, but there's a first time for everything, and these 2 had earned it. That also gave them an extra week to plan their transition from the basics of first-year classes into something more suitable for their skill levels. In these newly grown bodies, they didn't look much different than the older students, and they were roughly the same size, allowing them to fit right in if they were transferred. There was some talk of moving them to a different academy, to avoid the upset that would be caused among students in the Year 3 class at the special treatment, but that was put to a sudden stop when they received the notice of a new trainer coming. The man was a living legend on Kepler Terminus, pilot of a Phalanx-class mecha that specialized in point defense. Alone he could hold a small city against an attack by light mecha and conventional vehicles. He intended to recruit the 2 cadets for classified special forces training, testing their worthiness here before moving them should they prove successful. That bought them the time they needed to let the cadets adjust to their new sizes and muscle density. Puberty in a week didn't come without a cost, and the initial pain was only part of it. The awkwardness was very real, and many cadets basically had to learn to walk again. The day before fall break finally came, Major Payne delivered the news of permission to return home for the early break to the cadets, who were training on the resistance machine at the lower than usual balanced growth setting so they didn't strain anything, then returned to the main class, who were writing exams at the moment. You know what my parents are like, why don't you come to my house? Nico asks and Max sighs. My parents might be really terrible people, but they will get mad if I snub them for your family, and I don't want to make things difficult for you. Max sighed at Nico when the news came in that they could go home early for a visit. What made things so awkward between them and you anyhow? You're pretty well behaved for a first year, Nico asked, putting on her best adult voice then breaking into giggles at the mental image of him beside the other first years. I couldn't always control my gift, but I didn't realize it was subconsciously activating right away. I didn't know that some things weren't things I should know, so I spilled secrets and ruined surprises all through my early childhood until a friend helped me out. It made things really awkward with my parents and even worse with their relatives, who completely stopped visiting. Max decided to skip over the bit where his mother still insists he's her daughter not her son. That's embarrassing enough just knowing, much less telling anyone else. I'll fix this. Come with me. Nico instructs. As expected, Major Payne is found in front of the array of monitors in her office when Nico knocks at the door. Yes, cadets, how might I help you? She asks. We've a bit of a conundrum, Major. Cadet Max doesn't wish to go home, but for the sake of his mental health it is best he takes the holidays away from school. Might there be a way for him to be officially reprimanded to the campus, but still free to see my family for the holidays? Nico asks. The Major is, of course, well aware of the Max family's issues. She's read all of the medical and observation records for her students, and knew that Max unwittingly told the recruitment officer of his father's alcoholism and his mother's affairs and drug abuse during a routine checkup at age 3. He would not be allowed by the academy to return to that house anyhow, so a note that he is not permitted to return home should be simple enough. Will your parents agree? They should have 4 young boys now, correct? If all is well, yes, they should have 2 sets of twins. Fortunately, we are capable of entertaining ourselves, and the interaction should prove beneficial to Cadet Max. Nico smiles. There will be cake. Major Payne can't help but laugh at that. The pair of overly mature cadets suddenly reminded her of proper 12-year-olds there for a moment. Go on, I'll settle it for you. See you in 2 weeks. With that they were off, an academy car delivering them directly to the Tereth family doorstep. My baby, you're back. And so grown. I read the permission letter from the school, you even brought me another girl. You're too kind, you don't know what it's like being around so many boys all day. Mary Tereth all but cries in her daughter's arms. Your mom is just as much fun as you remembered, Max chuckles. Hi, I'm Max. Unfortunately I'm not the girl my parents wished me to be, but feel free to call me Sam or Sammy. Everyone just uses last names in the academy, so I haven't heard it in a while. Whichever you prefer, dear. It's all the same to me. Then Max it is. Max declared and gave an impish smile to the overwhelmed woman. The Tereth family wasn't a particularly rich family, at least not all of them, but they were a close-knit and very old and influential one. Over the course of the first week dozens of relatives came to see the cadets in their academy uniforms, have dinner with the parents or even just watch a large group of the extended family's kids for a few hours to give everyone else a break. The last day of their vacation was a predictably teary-eyed affair, with Mary finding every excuse to delay their departure until Nico was sure the escort driver was going to simply throw them in the car and flee. Is she always like that, cadet? He asked as they finally drove away. No sir. She's got 2 sets of twin boys at home though and misses having a girl around. The driver laughs. That I can understand. I've got 5 younger sisters. My father finds any excuse to come visit.